Hello, thank you for joining us for our exclusive town hall discussion on KTXS The Path Forward, where we will not only be focusing on issues in the Black community, but we'll also be searching for solutions. And that brings us to our panel today, who will be helping us find those solutions. We have Pastor Andrew Pence, who served as the president of the NAACP for 12 years. We have Shante Fleming, who is the founder and president of Let Us Breathe. And we have two students from McMurray University who serve on the Black Student Union. And now it's hard to discuss where we're going without discussing where we've been. So Pastor Pence, why is preserving and teaching Black history important?
The importance of Black history is that the history must be told. It's important, especially when you look at the history of Abilene, concerning how so much of the history from the Black perspective ended up in the graveyard or either in the dump ground. So it's important to preserve, it's important to document, it's important to pass history on. Over the generations, from the Black perspective, the stories have always been told. I mean, I can remember growing up as a young child and can remember my great-grandparents and my grandparents, and then my mother and my dad telling the stories of life. So it's very important. And I feel that today is greatly important because as generations pass off, then another generation coming on, they need to know the history of their family, of the past, and also to help persevere going forward.
And now you're very active in the community. How do you help those coming up behind us move past from our past?
How do I help others?
Yes, move forward from our past.
Well, I tell a story every Sunday, one about preaching the gospel, and that's a story, but it's a true story. Same as we do about life. One thing I do with my children, my grandchildren, and also the children of our church is to try to sit and listen and to hear what they have to say, and then to give some constructive guidance, constructive information that will help them to continue to persevere, to have a life that would be centered on accomplishments, and to not to feel that they have lost out on many things.
And now, Shante, is social media movements like Black Lives Matter, are they beneficial to our community?
I think so. I think that anytime we have a chance to highlight injustices of Black people, that's always important. Social media, that can be your best and your worst platform. Since the like social media era, it has actually captured so many injustices against Black people that it's now being televised. So when we just heard stories, we just heard of stories, but now to actually see it, to actually see the recordings, to see the body cam footage, it's a total different era now when you talk about social media. And I think that not just Black Lives Matter, but just getting the word out there, letting people know what is happening. That's why it's very, very important that we focus on our local officials and our local campaigns. These things matter, and they matter for not just Black, but just injustices that we all face every single day. That's why I try to encourage people to look at the local elections and to get involved, because it matters.
Now, Nakaya and Kyle, how does the social media play a role in your universities in the community?
It plays a major role because not everybody grew up in the same background as we did. You know, we pay attention to those kind of things, and some of our white counterparts, some of our white friends, they don't have that same background that we have. And so when we have social media that shows them what we face and what we see on a day-to-day basis, it's easier for them to understand and for us to explain without having any type of backlash, being like, no, that didn't happen, no, this has happened, no, like, this is on recording, this is what it is, social media showing this. Our generation, we're on Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat all the time. That's like our day-to-day lives. And being able to see those things happen before in front of us and be able to say, no, this is the proof, this is evidence, it's really beneficial for us because now we're growing up understanding what Black people face on a day-to-day basis and how the world views certain things when it comes to Black issues. So I really feel like social medias have been really beneficial for our generation growing up now.
And Kai, do you feel that's a good thing or a negative thing?
I think it can be beneficial and harmful kind of at the same time. I think beneficial for the many reasons that Kyle listed. You know, we can show those that, you know, aren't having like the same difficulties that we have constantly. We get to show them a different perspective and like why we'll teach our children and our children's children the certain ways to protect themselves and to make sure that, you know, we understand the importance of such things. But it's also kind of harmful to the fact that because we're playing into these roles, we're not able to break the generational curses that constantly keep coming up. The fact that we have to code switch and make ourselves kind of more easier to access or for other people to feel safer. It's protecting us, but at the end of the day, like, we shouldn't have to do this. So it's protecting us, but like I said, it also it's kind of sad when you think about it, because you have to go out of your way and basically be someone that you're not in order to, you know, stay safe and, you know, just make another day just living.
And now, Cal, I know you have some views on code switching. Can you first explain to me what code switching is? And then do you feel like that's something that you have to do to make other races more comfortable being in your presence?
Yeah, so essentially code switching is just like, you know, changing your voice or the way you talk around certain people. Because, like, for example, I can't talk to my, you know, white counterparts like how I talk to my homeboys back at home, you know, and it's frustrating. It really is, because it's like, I want to be able to talk, you know, how I usually talk or back when I'm back home, but, you know, I have to do that I was told I have to do that to thrive in the world that we live in today, just because I can dress the part, I can look the part, I can go to the same school and get the same degree as certain people, but then because of the way I talk or because of the way I carry myself, you know, I'm suddenly not adequate enough to be able to get the position anymore just because of how I talk. You know, you wouldn't go to someone from Chicago and tell them that they're an idiot because they talk with slang compared to someone who's like in New York or something like that, you know? So it's really frustrating that that's what I have to do and able to thrive out in America, you know?
And Shantae, I saw you nodding your head. What's going through your mind?
Oh, code switching. I go to many events here, and one of the things that I realize is that I'm the only one in the room that looks like me. I'm the only Black person there, and it is uncomfortable at times at certain events, but you get used to it. You have to. We don't have a choice. So for me, code switching is real, because if I see you and we're out at this event and it's a lot of Black people, I'm gonna be like, hey girl. But if I'm there, I'm like, oh, hi, how are you? I have to make sure that my words are right. I can't be very passionate, very open about things. I have to play the role. So it's a real thing. You know, I just campaigned last year, and code switching was real. It was certain things I had to stay away from. I couldn't do. I couldn't be really my true, authentic self. And I was just, I didn't know how deep it was until I had to really, really experience it. So
Now,
he's telling the truth.
Now, Pastor Pence, how far back does code switching go? Because I heard you over there. How far back does it go?
Well, I believe that you should be yourself. I grew up a time of segregation into desegregation, into integration. We all have a different dialect. It's how you articulate, and my articulation might not be as the other person's articulation. I have been in a lots of meetings myself and have been the only black that's been in those meetings. But I come in with an attitude and a set of mind that I'm just as important as that next person that's sitting next to me. And when you listen to others speak, I mean, their dialect or way of speaking might not be as great as you think it is. So I don't have to put on no airs, I don't pretend, I just go forward as self. I've learned how to articulate because I'm standing before a congregation every Sunday. Not only in a congregation, but even the speeches that I do or times I'm speaking to a mass crowd. It's just how you articulate. But feel proud the way you've been taught and feel comfortable with the way you speak. And I don't let anything deter me or discourage me if I'm only the one white, only black in the room or not, if there's a mass of whites. I feel like I'm just as much as important and just as much a part of as they are.
Thank you. And Nakaya, how do you think we can move forward to where we can exist in a world where we don't feel like we have to code switch?
Honestly, I think it kind of starts like at home. More than just telling people that you don't see color, start telling them you do see color, but you're not going to treat them differently. I've always found that quote kind of ironic because, I mean, you do, unless of course you're like a dog and you see only black and white, but seeing color but not changing your perspective on a person until you get to meet them and talk to them. And you can't meet every single person. But you know, step away from stereotypes and just treat people how you want to be treated. That's the main thing that I do in my day-to-day life. Like every day I strive to be the best version of myself, and I can only do that by treating people how I would like to be treated. So I go out of my way to show a little kindness, tell a funny story, because I've got plenty of them. My life is like a rom-com that is not ending. But you know, just show kindness and be patient with people, because you never know, like someone may not even mean what they say. They may just be having a bad day, so you can't take everything personal. And I think especially like for your children and things like that, just be as nice and kind and as patient with them as you would want to be with yourself.
Thank you. Shantae, how do you think we can move forward past code switching?
Well, we've been doing this for a long time, even way before I was born, and it is important to know how to always carry yourself. It is important to know when and where, the right time, and you don't ever want to go into certain situations and your tone is different, or just like she was saying, you have to just treat people the right way, and then you actually have to educate people on, hey, I may get a little loud to you, but I'm just passionate about something that I'm talking about, and it's not that I am being belligerent or I'm very upset or I'm angry. I'm just passionate about something I'm speaking on. But we've been fighting this battle for a long time, and it's about the way you carry yourself, how you present yourself, and I just think that as we move forward, it's sad, but it's real. You just learn the game. You learn how to adapt, and that's just it. That's how it's been, and for us to move forward, I just think educating more people on cultural differences, that's helped me so far.
Thank you. And Nakaya, has there ever been a time where you've been perceived as the good black person?
Oh, honestly, all the time. Anytime I went into a job where someone thought that I didn't meet the qualifications or things like that, and then they hear me speak, or they hear, like she mentioned, how passionate I am about something, and I bring in facts or something like that. That's been a very big issue. one, being the only black woman there, being educated, being passionate, and having a lot more intelligence than people think. And it comes off like, I know some people mean well, but saying, oh my God, you speak so well, or I didn't expect that from you, or, you know, it's like, it's little things that I've noticed in people's speech and how they present it, that I've gotten more comfortable in myself and my identity as a person. I'm like, hey, you know, you could just say, you're doing a really great job, or this is really good for you. You don't have to add in like the little bits at the end, because you wouldn't say this to anyone else. And like she mentioned, like educating people. And when I started doing that, I felt more comfortable in my work areas. My resume is great. You know, I'm obviously a hard worker, and I try to go into every work environment that I do with an open heart and an open mind. And I feel like people should also try to do the same thing. But unfortunately, there are some people that don't want to be educated, but we shouldn't let it deter us from, you know, like you said, moving forward.
And Pastor Pence, how important is education within the black community?
Well, it's very, very important. I encourage any and everyone to at least get an education. And today it's even more important than it was when I was growing up, to have some type of education behind you. Most jobs now, even the lower excellence jobs, those jobs are either pushing buttons or figuring something out to make it work. So it's important to get an education. And I think today, and I know today, doors have been opened more for African Americans than ever before. And the opportunities are there. And there are lots of different types of financial aids and other things you can get without having to pay the money back. Just pursue it. There are grants and other ways and means. And I do speak from the perspective from the black church. Most pastors my age and maybe now under, we stress education. I mean, even in the church, you have to have some type of level of understanding to be able to articulate or to be able to teach anything in any way, and to better yourself and progress yourself. Today, it's just about getting that diploma. But also, I stress also the importance, if you're not going to go to a 2-year college or 4-year college, get some type of trade. I mean, there are various trades today that pays more than the white collar banker or stuff like that. It depends. Or if you're building your own business, you have to have some kind of understanding and knowledge. If you're in contracting or whatever you're doing, to be able to understand, and also to fill out the forms and the information to be able to receive those grants, and I mean to get those bids and to be able to get the job to accomplish, whether it's at a city level, whether it's at a state level, or even a national level. So it's very important. And like I say, this day and time, since minds are much more sharper, I mean, I can reflect back growing up in church, and because I'm older than all these that are here, but I reflect back growing up in church and the pastors we had, most of the people would lean on them and even depend on them, some to help read and things like that. Even as I came into the ministry 43 years ago, I've seen a great change. And from the perspective of pastoring now, I must spend certain hours of study. I must spend certain hours of preparation to be able to stand before a congregation and bring forth what has been printed in the Word of God. So it's very important. And it's now, I mean, with technology, with the access of computers and other things we have, young minds, 3 and 4 years old, are now beginning to take phones and do different things with them. And it's good for them to learn, it's good for them to be trained, but also to be able to, once they get up in life, to have something that they can say solid enough that will secure their future, will secure their life, and to make life a little bit more easier.
Thank you,
for
Pastor
today.
Pence. So, Nakaya, back to you. So you mentioned that you were treated as one of the good ones based on your education. So when that happens to you, is there anything that you do to let them know that education does not mean that Black people are good people?
When stuff like that happens, I also mention like either family members or friends or things like that that either don't have an education or aren't pursuing it, but are still doing things that I wish I could be doing. Like the pastor just mentioned, like running businesses and like taking care of like their family and learning to like invest in things like that. I speak about the importance of that. So it's kind of like the opposite side of, yes, I have an education and I want to be here because, I mean, this is something I would like to do, but just let them know, like, just because these people don't have educations does not mean that they are not intelligent. In our classes, we stress, like that's one thing I really love about McMurray. We stress that intelligence doesn't have to just come from getting a college degree. You can have intelligence in different areas. So you may not be book smart, but there are some other things like trades, talents, arts, crafts, engineering. There's some other things that you don't even have to go to school for that are still like really, really important to the community. Not everyone can sit in an office all day and, you know, do codes and any other things in the office. We need people to be plumbers. We need people to be to work on AC vents. We need people to do the hard and dirty work that other people don't want to do. And there's hardworking, you know, African Americans and Black Americans that are doing that. So when someone talks about the work that I'm doing, especially like being on here and just speaking about it, there's people that are doing the work and putting in the work constantly that aren't getting their recognition. So if someone talks about how great I'm doing, I make sure to reflect back on someone else, like, hey, they're doing this and they're doing this and they're younger than me, and I can't even believe that I get a chance to be in school while they're already starting their career and I'm still looking forward to mine.
Thank you. And a big issue within the Black community is how African Americans are treated by the police. So Kyle, what has been your relationship with the police?
It's been a very weird experience. I do remember when I was a sophomore in high school, a police officer followed the bus, of all things, a school bus, around the neighborhood, stopped around the neighborhood, and at my stop specifically, because there was 9 of us, and we're all Black students, but we're all hanging out in front of my best friend's house, who's right in front of the bus stop on her porch. And I remember the officer stepped out and started fussing at us and yelling at us and telling us to go home. And when we questioned him, because, you know, of course, for the safety of our friend's house, you know, what could possibly be the issue as to why you're harassing us the way you are, because we watched you follow our school bus around the neighborhood. And he threatened to put us in handcuffs and arrest us if we didn't comply or anything like that. And it's just been, ever since that moment, it's been very hard for me to put trust into law enforcement, just because of the fact that I'm Black and you see me as a threat. Even though I'm in the safety of my own house, you still will look at me as if I'm the threat to you. And that's just in Houston. As far as Abilene, I haven't had any issues, so thank God for that. But other people face worse than that, you know, and my relationship with it is very up in the air. It's kind of up and down. Sometimes I tense up whenever I see a police car next to me, even though I know I'm not doing anything wrong and I have no reason to fear it. It's just that trauma response to what happened that particular day that doesn't allow me to leave that trust into law enforcement's hands.
And is there anything law enforcement can do to make you more comfortable?
Just train not to see Black people as a threat, because people like to statistic us and say that we're just stronger and we're always angry and that we're threatening anyway, and that's not always the case. You know, that can be for any race, you know, whether it be Hispanic, Asian, white, Black, you know, it's not about history or anything like that when it comes to, okay, back then you were this and that, so because your family's like this and that, you're gonna be like that. You know, I would rather train them to not always the gun be the first thing to pull out, or to look at me and see, okay, these groups of people ethnically, statistically are going to be the ones that's going to give you the most issues. So therefore, if you approach this type of people, specifically Black people, just be on your guard. I would rather them not train like that. I'd rather them be like, okay, look, we don't want to end the life today. Let's take this down the right way, rather it be with a taser or something like that, mace or whatever the case may be, you know, if it comes down to it, you know, but I just really wish that pulling a gun out and pointing it at me when you ask for my ID isn't the first response that you go for.
Now, Nakaya, as a young black woman, what's your experience with the police?
To be honest with you, I try to limit my interactions with the police, just like in general. I haven't had any situations into which I have come in contact, fortunately, unlike Kyle. I haven't had any issues with the police, but then again, I grew up in the small town of Merkel, like 15 minutes away from here, where everyone knows everyone. We knew the police officers, they were at their school and things like that, and I was a pretty well-known person, so like if police were called, 9 out of 10, they would know us. So thankfully, that kind of helped me. And then same thing with like Abilene. I make myself pretty known. Like I said, I've got a great resume. I worked at a lot of places. So the few times where I have like kind of dealt with the police, whether it be for like establishment-wise or things like that, it was just them coming in to say hi. So thankfully, I haven't had the same experience, but I still think it is a really serious issue. Like I have an older brother, a younger brother, my boyfriend, his family. I kind of tell them, hey, you are still a black man in America. You really do need to be careful. You know, it's a scary thing to have to say, but like my little brother is 15 years old, and even though I don't have children, I consider him basically my child, and the thought of him one day, you know, his life being taken by a police officer crosses my mind every now and then, and it's still terrifying to this day. Whether or not they are going to implement any training or try, it's still a thought that crosses my mind simply because of things that have been going on and been brought to light. And that's only the issues that we're seeing. That's only the issues that social media has shown us, and they are still gruesome. So imagine the ones that we haven't been able to see. And I would like that completely to end, and, you know, think about people's families. You know, at the end of the day, like he said, like, you're taking someone's life. You're taking someone's son, someone's nephew, or anything. You're taking someone's life, and that's something that we really need to work on.
And now, Shantae, something that she said that stood out to me is she feels comfortable around the police, well, more comfortable because she's made herself known. How do you feel hearing that an African-American student has to make herself known to be comfortable around the police?
Well, I can only speak for right here at home. I'm born and raised here in Abilene, and in 2020, we seen the death of George Floyd. We tried to mend some fences with our local police. We tried to bridge some gaps there. In 2023, we had a black mayor, we had a black police chief. We do a lot of community events. Police know who I am, you know, but also I'm a bondsman. So, and I did that for a while, so I was pretty familiar with them. But in 2020, wanted to take a spin on things. I felt like that there was a whole lot more that I could do to bring awareness to a lot of things, and just to advocate for people that could not advocate for themselves. So not really making myself known, because it doesn't matter to me if they know me or not. I just see a lot of things that are not right. And in those things, when you feel like that you could do more and something is placed on your heart, you follow that. And so for me, I seen the biggest injustice in 2023 when we set aside and we watched them emasculate a black police chief, Abilene's first black police chief, the only black chief. And to me, no one really stood up and said a whole lot. And I know that I can't take on Abilene all by myself. But dealing with the police and the like issues there, the like history of Abilene police, I worked hard to try to mend fences, and we're still in the same boat that we were in 2020. So.
And Pastor Pants, I'm going to ask you a question, then I'm going to ask Kyle the same question. At what age were you taught how to interact with the police?
Really after I was grown. I mean, we never had that much in the community at that time from the time growing up. There was some problems, but during my time of growing up, and especially during the 50s and the 60s, as I became a teenager in the age of 60, in the 60s, it was more community oriented. So we didn't have to worry about police. You had to worry about Big Mama down the street. Big Mama was police when I was growing up. I mean, and those men that were respected in the community, even those that wasn't so respected, you just didn't act up. So I didn't have that much of a problem. Now, after I came out of military, still didn't have much trouble with that. But the stigma that was in Abilene wasn't so much with the police department and with the police forces, it was with the availability of jobs, of getting the right job. And I left Abilene and started my career in Austin, Texas. But after returning, there was some levels of police brutality. When I served as the president of NAACP, I became president about mid-70s after returning, and served till about mid-80s. Not only was there police brutality in the black community, but it was also prevalent in the Hispanic community. There was a delegation of about 15, 16 of us went to Washington, D.C. in the early 80s. And while we were there with LULAC, NAACP, and other civil rights fighters, we addressed the issues of several who had been killed by police persons and other situations that had transpired. From that time we met and came back to Texas, it seemed to have quieted a little bit and seemed to have done well. In the 90s, early 90s, as we say we are a nonprofit that I became a part of that dealt with race relations and race issues and things that were taking place in the predominantly black community. We were able to sit down with the chief of police, with the deputy sheriff and other officials, and see how we could sort of build a relationship. And one of the things we found out is that if there's a presence in the community of a police car not going to arrest, but getting out to go and get to know that person or get to know that group and to have an interaction to know one another. I do have to say that Chief Melvin Martin was very prevalent in helping us to accomplish a lot. Today there are few more black officers that are on the streets and out patrolling. You see more faces driving the patrol cars. I have not had much of problems with any of the officers. I've been stopped before. And one incident, I had a friend of mine who, I missed a stop sign, and I was going home and didn't intentionally do it, but stopped sporadically and moved on, and he stopped me. But after he learned who I was, we became the best friends, and even today we are great friends. But he was going to do his job. He brought to mind that I had missed a stop sign, and I told him yes, I didn't do it intentionally. But after we talked, we got to know each other, interacted, and today we are still the best of friends. I think what we really need to focus on is race relations. Now, I'm honestly to say, when you look at the black community, there's really no black community anymore. I would say there are some communities that are underserved and communities that are not as well addressed in those areas as they are in the more affluent areas. Okay. And I think there's a way that we can sit down and talk with our city officials, with our now Cameron police chief, I have to agree with Shantae. I was not too enthused and happy with our chief of police resigning himself. But I'm one person, and I speak enough, not for people, I speak for me and my congregation, but it needed to be addressed a little bit more thorough as it was. Now we have a new chief, and the thing is now, if we're going to move forward, let's look at some of the things that have happened in the past. Sit down and discuss those issues, and then try to break those areas down. Like I said, I'm elated to see black faces in the patrol cars. I'm not so pleased at not seeing black faces on the back of the fire trucks and driving the fire trucks here in the city of Abilene, Texas.
Thank you for sharing. I'm going to move on to Kyle. At what age were you taught how to interact with the police?
Growing up, it was like a really young age. Now that I think about it, like I was probably like 8 or 9 or 10, one of those young ages. Like my mom's sitting here teaching me like how to react to when a police officer pulls me over, and I'm sitting here 9 years old. Mama, I don't drive. I'm 9, and the realization of that didn't really hit me because I grew up in a neighborhood where it was just a minority neighborhood. There was not really any white people in the neighborhood, especially at schools. Like it was like always 1% white people. But that realization of how to act with law enforcement didn't hit me until 2020 when, again, George Floyd, that whole incident happened, and then there was more incidences surfacing up after that. And I didn't realize that, like, wow, I'm black. Like I'm a black man in America, and that's dangerous and scary as all get out. And only time I had to interact with white people was when I had to work my senior year, and then coming here into Abilene and having white friends. It's it's a different experience, and then having to interact with police enforcement at a young age. I'm over here talking to my friends like, yeah, no, my mom taught me when I was 8 years old to always keep your hands at 10 and 2, and my white friends just like, they just told me to just have a conversation with them, like just be chill, and I'm like, so y'all didn't get like multiple talking tos about like how to act or that this isn't that? And they're like, no, like I got taught at a young age, like when you go out to the mall with your friends, like you represent me. You need to act like you have some home training. My white friends don't get that type of conversations. Like their parents are just like, yeah, go have fun in the mall, do what you want. Like I can't do what I want to do when I want to go to the mall. I got to make sure I carry myself as if I have some home training and I got some common sense, because I can't just go out into the mall, run around the mall, and curse as many words I want to say. People are gonna look at me as if I'm legit a thug. I have tattoos right now, so if I was to talk that way, like how my white friends do, someone's gonna feel threatened by me. But if they do it, it's like, no, they're just kids, like it's fine. So it's such a heartbreaking experience that like I have to go through. I was brought up a different way than what my white counterparts were brought up, because like it's a struggle. You have to remind yourself every day, like, yeah, I'm around people that don't look like me, and that I might talk a certain way or act a certain way, and I might have a white name, but at the end of the day, no matter what, I can't change the fact that I'm still a black man in America, and that I have to treat myself and carry myself as I am still black in America. Because if I don't, and I slip up and forget who I am and where I come from, that could be definitely for me.
Yes. And now you both are from 2 different generations and share 2 different experiences. How do y'all feel listening to their experiences from the different generations?
Well, today I have sons. So as my sons were growing up, they're all young men now, and I thank God that they're fairly good young men. And even now my grandchildren, especially the males, I really put forth emphasis on making sure when you leave home to always be careful. Always be careful. And I know it's a difference from when I grew up. Even though police were prevalent in the neighborhood, and there was some bad cops back during my day. I mean, there was some things that happened in the neighborhood that we know that happened. But I didn't have to endure lots of it. But now that I have children, I have grandchildren, and then I have young men in our congregation, I stress to them, always be careful about how you carry yourself. Not that you should be afraid, and I don't want none of them to be afraid, because you are a man, not only a black man, but you're a man. And you should have that respect as well as someone else. But I do believe today, and I hate to say that is it because of integration that we have these conversations with our children? Because these young folks here, they grew up in an integrated segment. I grew up in a segregated segment. So there's a great difference. And as I stated, I stress that my children, especially if they're traveling, and of course they're grown now and they go wherever they want to go, and sometimes they call and sometimes they don't. But I always check in with Pops sometime to let me know your whereabouts. And if you check in and I know your whereabouts, if there's a situation or circumstance that arises, then I'll know how to address it and how to deal with it.
Thank you for sharing. And we're nearing the end of our discussion, but I want to ask each of you, what's something you want to change within the Black community and why? We'll start with you, Kyle.
Mainly our stereotypes within the Black community. Like, we're trying to break away from the thug lifestyle that we're all just loud, ghetto, don't know how to act, you're imbeciles, and like, you know, there's some of us that still haven't, that's not trying to break that stereotype, you know. Like, there's some of us that, yes, we were brought up in the neighborhood that wasn't the best, that's not, you know, the most well kept, but just because you brought up in that neighborhood don't mean you gotta act from that neighborhood, you know. And I get it's like, it's your norm, you know, that's how everybody else act, but my brother and my sister, you know, there's a certain way that we still got to carry ourselves in this world, whether we like it or not. And if we want to break stereotypes that make us not put us in a bad lighting, we got to put ourselves in a good lighting and change our mindsets of how we think and carry ourselves throughout the world, you know?
Very good. Shantae, what's something you want to change and why?
For me, my motto is be the change you want to see. So every day I am intentional. I deal with problems within our school district, to the criminal justice system, injustices, police, work, all type of things. I'm just one person, so I try to make myself aware of issues. I try to go to the sources, have some really good relationships here that I've made, talking to people, just cultural differences, and ones that you break those down and you kind of understand better my differences, their differences, and how that we were taught about each other, about white people, about black people. Then you kind of start to like understand some of the like differences there. But for me, I want to continue to be the change for like Abilene. I want to see a more diverse Abilene, a safer Abilene, safer for all people, not just for some of us. I want us all to grow, to blossom, to be successful. And that's why I try to encourage so many people of color, men and women. If you have something that's on your heart that you are passionate about and you want to do, you don't have to have everything together. Just start, just do something. And that's what we have to do, and we have to be intentional in it. Get up and do something. We are our own worst enemies sometimes because we let fear stop us. But you have to get up and just do. And that's what I do every single day.
And Nakia, what's something you would like to change, and how can we move towards that change?
For me, my main things are counseling within the Black community. I plan to be at LPC one day and probably get my MFT as well. I'm not quite sure why there's a stereotype that Black people don't need to go to counseling. Let's nip that right in the bud, please. Like, go to counseling. There's something that everyone needs to heal from, no matter what age, time period, or whatever the case is. Go to counseling. You need it. You cannot do better and be better as a person without it. Even if it's not as consistent as 2 or 3 times a week, even if it's once a month, do something. Like most colleges, if you take any amount of class, you get free counseling. Go to it, utilize it. And then another thing for me is for our Black women, especially that want to have children and want to raise their families, by breaking generational curses. You know what I'm saying? You know, don't have babies with someone that isn't treating you right. Think of your children's future. You know, marriage may not be something that you necessarily want, but if you think that you want to have a family, do that for your children. You know what I'm saying? Be with someone that you know would not only take care of you, but take care of your children's children, and things like that. And once again, go to counseling. I can't stress it enough. Please go to counseling. It's so beneficial.
And Pastor Pence, what's something you'd like to change, and how can we move forward?
Well, I believe we can move forward, and the way that is done is that we move forward together. I do the history, Black history in Abilene, Texas, and I'm honored to be able to do that. And many times I do tours at our culture center, and I have different people that come in, and lots of times it's white groups and sometimes mixed groups or Black groups. I tell a story from the start of early years Abilene. And each room that I go through, there's a different aspects of history that is told. And once we reach the upstairs in the upper part of the center, there's a room that speaks from slavery time into desegregation, into integration. And as I close that story, after going through all the aspects of the center, I always focus on several things. And the one thing is love towards one another. And then getting to know one's background, knowing one's culture, knowing one's lifestyle. I mean, to know that, and maybe if you don't agree with it, still love it. You have to love it. If not, just love the person. You might not love the lifestyle, but love the person. But you got to get to know. And I also feel that discussions, and I think we've been talking long enough. Abilene, I believe it's time now to break down some of the barriers that we have been faced with, some of the stigmas that we have had to deal with, and just mainly get into the grassroots of the whole situation. If Abilene is going to be an all-American city, or a city that we can say we're proud of, and a city that we can persevere and move together, then there is some times that we're going to have to come together and to address those issues. Maybe we won't agree with everything, but let's agree with enough that Abilene would be a better city, and that it could be a model for other cities. We're in the hub. Abilene is a hub, and it's one of the focal points from all directions that come to the center. And there's a lot of people that come here, and then also there's a lot of people who are now moving here. And we need to get to know those individuals, progressive-minded people, people who are willing to move forward on various things, various issues. From the Black perspective, see more visibility in the banks, in the upper city structure, whether it's in the city government, county government, or even in the state government. More visibility. And then encourage our Blacks to go for these jobs, to pursue these jobs. And then if there's a problem, then we will go to the company ourselves and say, why not? This individual can't be hired. We have to speak up sometime. And sometimes you become the scapegoat, or you become the critic, or you become the hated person. But somebody has to pay the price. Somebody has to make the sacrifice. So for us to move forward in Abilene, Texas, and I stated earlier during January for MLK banquet, There are some changes that need to be made in Abilene. I'll stress it again today. There are some changes that need to be made in Abilene. For Abilene to be an all-American city that we'll be proud to call each other's neighbors and friends, but more so have that one word, LOVE, towards one another.
Thank you for sharing, Pastor Pence. We talked about some very important issues within the Black community, and thanks to you all, we have a vision on how we can move forward. So thank you all for joining us today. And thank you all for watching our KTXS Town Hall exclusive, The Path Forward. Please remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel at KTXS Abilene.